Is this movie based on a chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula a suckfest? Well, yes and no. Let's talk about The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass. I'm here to talk to you about The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which comes to theaters on August 11th, 2023. It is a movie that is based on a single chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula. That is what their marketing is highlighting, that this is a movie that is extrapolated from one chapter of this book. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Well, I actually kind of thought this movie was better than I expected, but I still think it is a rental. I think ultimately it has a really nice start, a good cast, some wonderful music, and a nice kind of like period type horror aspect to it. But as this voyage continues and as you get more and more encounters with this mysterious thing that's on board the Demeter, it starts to go downhill fairly quickly. So ultimately, I think it's a rental, but I appreciate a lot about this movie, and it was much better than I expected it to be. I was expecting it to be really, really bad. It was just okay. So that being said, I'm going to tell you a little more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really briefly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't want to know what happens in this movie, you might not, although you kind of know what happens in this movie. If you've read Bram Stoker's Dracula, you kind of know what happens to this overall ship. It is the last voyage of the Demeter. But if you still don't want to know, I would turn it off when I get to the ending section. Before that, I'll keep it vague, I'll keep it spoiler free, and I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, like I said, The Last Voyage of the Demeter is based on a chapter from Bram Stoker's Dracula about this kind of doomed voyage of this ship that is transporting 50 crates of something from Romania to England. It has been contracted to do this. It was paid handsomely. And the crew thinks, great, we're going to get a payday for a pretty easy cargo run, but it is anything but that. It turns dark, it turns sinister, and it definitely becomes the last voyage of this ship. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the music. Look, one of the things I love so much about Bram Stoker's Dracula is the heavy, like foreboding, like gothic Baroque music that plays. Hans Zimmer did the score for that film, and I love it. The March of the Vampire Slayers is one of my favorite songs like of all time. This movie doesn't have the same level of music, but has a similar style, has a similar feel to it. And I really liked how they kind of tried to evoke that Bram Stoker's feel, but didn't exactly copy it. I was kind of hoping that some of those songs would like make appearances. I do like that this movie has similar style, has similar feel, but made its own. The second thing I loved, look, I love the sets. I love the kind of the overall time period. It was really nice to see like a period piece type horror film that was done pretty well, like especially the start. It starts in Romania. It starts in like a busy, bustling town, and it definitely feels like you step into another world. It has similar feeling to like Master and Commander, not nearly as good of a film, but the sets themselves are well done. The world feels pretty realized, and when you get on that ship, it does feel like you get kind of transported back in time. I like that it set the stage really well and transported you back to 1897 so you could experience this doomed voyage. The third thing I love, look, I like the cast. It has a really great cast. You've got David Dastmalchian, who I love. Like, I will see anything he's in. He is a fantastic actor. I think he's very underrated. He does a really good job in this. It also has Liam Cunningham, who you know as like a knight captain from Game of Thrones. Well, now he is a captain of this doomed ship. I liked both of their characters. And the film has a really good overall cast and a nice variety of characters for this voyage. It gives you kind of a few different perspectives and a few different like interesting, quirky characters to kind of like interact with on the ship. And the last thing I love, look, I liked the practical effects to an extent. It felt like this film had a mix of practical and CG. Some aspects it aired a little bit heavily on the CG, but where it did do practical effects, I like that. There's a scene with some livestock where something happens that seems pretty practical. It seems like the film tried to focus on practical, but then did CG for some of the bigger, like explosive, I guess, for lack of a better word, scenes. And so when it aired on the side of practical, I really did like that. So that being said, I said that this film was a rental. The first and probably the most egregious and one of the reasons I really didn't like this film as much as I was expecting to, especially from that start. I thought when the film started, I was going to absolutely love this, but the Dracula, the kind of main character, and I don't know, spoilers, I guess, there's Dracula in this. It is a CG Dracula. It does not look very good. It doesn't look very scary. It doesn't look very imposing. It is definitely CG through and through, and it looks like it. I really wish that they would have done more on the practical side for the Dracula character. I mean, I understand you probably had to have some CG for when some of the big, more over-the-top scenes happen, but I feel like they could have done a practical effects Dracula for a lot of it, and it would have been much scarier. It would have been much more realistic looking. It would have not had that like CG effect that breaks your kind of suspension of disbelief in the horror. The second thing I didn't love as much, it's a fairly slowly paced movie for the overall journey. Like the start is really great. You get a bunch of new characters, you get a nice like setting for the overall voyage. Once you get on sea, it slows down pretty quickly, and the film is 2 hours long. It definitely feels like this is a 2 hour journey. It felt like this could have been a shorter journey, but it feels like definitely kind of like spaced out the voyage a little unnecessarily. It's a 2-hour voyage, and it definitely feels like it. The third thing I didn't love as much, I'll just call it, I don't know, the Hollywood aspect to it. I mean, this film is a kind of extrapolation of a chapter of the Bram Stoker's Dracula book, and it tries to fit to that, but it definitely makes some changes to turn this into a movie. They add some characters, which I didn't love as much. I mean, they were okay, but it felt kind of strange to have these characters on there. Some of the writing felt a little bit too, I don't know, flowery. I felt like they were trying to add some elements to this voyage to give the audience someone to root for. I mean, the main character, this person named Clemens, is a completely new character, I believe. They had some aspects on the voyage and some other new characters to kind of fill out this film and give you some more characters to root for. But I don't know, I felt like they were kind of changing up the Bram Stoker story and making it into something that felt more like a kind of hero monster movie rather than what it should have been, which was like a total annihilation kind of horror movie. And the last thing I didn't love as much is the ending. Like, this film had an ending, you kind of knew what was going to happen. It's called The Last Voyage of the Demeter, but it feels like they drew it out and tried to make it kind of overly dramatic, despite the fact that it is kind of inevitable what happens. It feels like it's similar to the Hollywood thing. It feels like they tried to depart slightly from how this was written in the books in order to give you like a character to root for, a big final like showdown, some other things that happen that make it seem more like a Hollywood movie and not as much like the story that you were told in the. I'm gonna go into those in the ending section, so just bear with me until then. I'm trying to keep it vague. I'm trying to keep it spoiler free right now. But I didn't really love the ending. I felt like it kind of departed a little bit too much from the actual kind of source material. So that being said, The Last Voyage of the Demeter is coming to theaters on August 11th, 2023. Like I said, I liked it more than I expected to. So if you're looking for a horror movie, if you're looking for kind of a period horror movie, check it out. Let me know what you think. I think it's ultimately a rental. I don't think it's kind of worth going to theaters. But if you do see it, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, and what I got right and wrong. I'd love to hear it. And I'm going to go to the ending section now. So if you don't want to know what happens in this movie, turn it off now because there will be spoilers. But like I said, you kind of know how this movie ends. So maybe there won't be that big of a spoiler. So in The Last Voyage of the Demeter, like I said, you've got this character Clemens, who is kind of the main character the audience is supposed to root for. He is this black doctor who is in Romania and ends up on the Demeter, which is heading to England. It seems like he's trying to get back to England. He gets on the ship as a doctor and meets the crew, meets the captain, sees the situation that happens, and boy, did he choose the wrong ship to get on. But the ship sets out with 50 crates of stuff. You don't know what it is. Spoiler, it's soil from Count Dracula's home in Transylvania. But the ship sets out. They think that they're going to make good time. They start off in high spirits. Everything is going well. And then as the journey progresses, things start to go wrong. One of the first big things that goes wrong is one of the crates, the like giant crates, falls and breaks open, and a bunch of dirt spills out. And when Clemens goes to inspect this, he finds that there is a person in here, which seems very weird. Like, a person in this box of dirt. How could that possibly be? It is this girl named Anna who was apparently being transported in there. She's alive but very weak. She has infected blood. And so Clemens, who is actually a doctor, starts doing blood transfusions to kind of get rid of the infected blood and give her good blood. So he gives her his blood and gets rid of her infected blood. And eventually this seems to work. She starts to get better. She starts to speak a little bit. Eventually she does wake up, and you find out a little bit more about her and like what her plight was. Although you never really find out a ton. That was one of the things that was weird. She dropped hints here and there, but I feel like at some point she should have just like laid out exactly what was going on and who this person was and what they could possibly do to stop it, because I don't know, that might have been useful information at the start of the film rather than have it be trickled through later on. So after they discover this girl, the crew thinks that this is a bad sign. Apparently a girl on a ship, and this time was considered bad luck. But that's not the least of their problems, because their bad luck gets worse. One of the crew members disappears after a watch. The animals get attacked, like all their livestock gets slaughtered. The dog, the lovely dog, gets killed, which if a dog gets killed, you know that the enemy is really, really bad. Dracula's really, really bad. They start to notice this like bat-looking like creature on the ship here and there. All the rats disappear, which is never a good sign, because a ship is going to always have rats at this time. If they're all disappeared, something either spooked them or something killed them. There is not a rat in sight. Things are not going well for this ship. But eventually, like I said, Anna starts to get better. She starts to kind of like recover, and she starts saying a word over and over again, which is feed, which is probably not a good thing for her to keep saying. Like, that seems like an ominous sign, but she keeps saying it, and it is a sign of things to come. So eventually, Anna starts to share a little bit more. She wakes up and she like realizes she's on the ship, and she is like, we have to get out of the ship. The ship is cursed. She eventually discloses that like she is from a small village that is in the shadow of this big old castle. It's older than anyone in the village, and an evil thing lives in there and drinks the blood of the innocent. Not really a good thing to recollect. And then she says, like, the elders of a village made a deal with this monster to protect her people and gave Anna to him. And so she has been like, I guess, his, I don't know, sustenance. He has definitely been feeding on her. He doesn't kill her, but he definitely feeds on her. And I guess he brought her with him on this voyage. Now, it's weird that he would bring her on this voyage because, like, she was pretty weak when they found her. Maybe that was just kind of an act, but it feels like she was fairly weak. Feels like she was probably not going to make it. So it seems odd that he would bring her to feed. And then also, he has a full kind of buffet of sailors that he eventually drinks. So I don't know why he would bring Anna when he could like have his choice of able-bodied men like on the ship. Eventually, one of the main characters, this person named Oberon, gets bitten by Dracula, and he's weak. They tie him up. Eventually, he kind of like breaks free and feels like he's possessed. Like his eyes turn white. He moves around like a zombie. It's weird because I guess he's kind of like the vampire's, I don't know, puppet, but he moves kind of like a zombie. He acts kind of like a zombie. He doesn't really feel like much of a vampire. He just kind of like shambles and tries to attack one of the kids on the ship, the only kid on the ship named Toby. Toby runs to the captain's quarters, closes it, and Oberon like hobbles over and starts like banging on it with his head. Which is a nice effect, a scary effect. It also feels weird. This is kind of like how Dracula's uh, minions react. It doesn't feel like, I don't remember them being kind of like zombies in that respect. I felt like they were a little bit more cunning, a little bit more kind of like sinister. This one, I felt like he was really just kind of a shambling mound. Eventually, like Toby is definitely freaked out by this, and he starts banging on the ship to try to get their to try to get the attention of some of the other people. They hear it, they come down, they subdue Oberon, but unfortunately, Dracula's already in the room. Somehow he got into this room, this locked captain's quarters, and is already in there and bites Toby. So bold move. Like this movie, Dracula kills a dog, Dracula bites a child. It is definitely kind of like pushing the boundaries, but you know what? I'm okay with that because it definitely makes you not like this character. Even though, like I said, Dracula looks really bad. He is 100% CG. Doesn't look very scary. Doesn't look very kind of realistic. You can definitely tell it's a CG monster, and it really kind of takes you out of the experience whenever you see him. But that being said, Toby gets bitten. Toby gets drained. He does survive. He doesn't die. And the crew is able to subdue Oberon. So, you know, all's well that ends well, right? Well, not really. They tie Oberon to the mast of the ship, and they kind of want to keep him there. Unfortunately for him, he is now kind of turned a little more. I guess he has some vampire aspects, although it doesn't feel like he's a vampire at this point. It feels like he is just more of like a zombie, but we'll just kind of like let it slide for right now. While he's on the mast, the sun comes up, the sun like breaks. And when that happens, he starts burning. Oberon like bursts into flames because he's now kind of a vampire. So the sun is killing him. Not really good for everyone. He doesn't light the ship on fire, but he definitely like scars everyone around him by being burned alive in front of them. Now, Clemens and Anna decide that they need to kind of do something. They need to figure out what is going on and where this monster is. Remember when Dracula was in the captain's quarters, the whole entire crew saw him, so they know that something is on the ship. Clemens and Anna decide that they're going to do something about it. They start opening the crate, and eventually they find the crate that Dracula's living in. How do they know? Well, the soil is disturbed and it's full of maggots. So they know that this is where Dracula is like sleeping during the day. I don't know why they don't like chill there and decide to attack it or do something, but they don't. They hatch this plan to try to stop Dracula. So after they find Dracula's sleeping spot, Toby dies. Toby ends up kind of succumbing to his injuries, and they bury him at sea. But before they bury him, the captain thinks he sees him move, and so he wants him to open up this like burial cloth that's wrapped around him. He wants to show them that Toby's alive. He opens it up, he rips it open. Toby is clearly dead, but then he sits up and then bursts into flames because it's the day. He was covered in the burial cloth that was protecting him from the sun, and now he is out in the open. He is a vampire, or at least turning into a vampire. He gets lit on fire. The captain gets some injuries because of this. They throw Toby overboard. So this poor kid, like his dog died. He got eaten by a vampire. He turned into a vampire kind of. He then got set on fire and then gets like thrown into the sea. I hope that he dies from this. I hope he doesn't just like sink to the bottom of the sea and live in like the bottom of the sea for the rest of his eternity. But we'll see. We don't get that information. I think he probably does die. So, or at least passes on. So now the crew comes up with this plan. They're like, we gotta figure something out. So they come up with this plan to set a trap for Dracula the next night. Why don't they do this during the day? I have no idea. It feels like they should have just like opened up the roof, opened up the casket where they know he's sleeping. Maybe they were worried he was going to sleep somewhere else, but they kind of found where he was sleeping. Open that up during the day. Sun pops in. Goodbye, Dracula. All fine. No, they come up with this convoluted plan to draw him out at night. They're going to use Anna, who, because Dracula had fed on her earlier, he had this connection to her. They knew that like she would draw him in. She is going to draw him in, and the rest of the crew are going to be like positioned around and shoot Dracula with rifles, kill him, hopefully stop him. That is their plan. And then shoot him with rifles, injure him, and then they're going to sink the ships. They're going to injure Dracula. They're all going to get into a rowboat, get off the ship, and they're going to sink the ship so that hopefully Dracula is just like in the bottom of the ocean and never going to be able to come and hurt the human world again. That's their plan. I don't know why they don't just do this during the day. Like they could just sink the ship during the day when he can't come out and then be done with it. No, they come up with this secret plan at night when he is able to move about and be free. Fine, it is what it is. As you can imagine, the plan doesn't go very well. First, Dracula like summons fog on the ship, so no one can see. They can't like see anything. Then he attacks the snipers who are up in the mast, and they can't see him because of all the fog. So he takes them out one by one. So after it kills the two snipers, Clemens goes and checks on Wojchek and tells Anna to go get the boat ready. And it's really weird because like Clemens is checking on Wojchek, who like fell from the mast. He broke his leg. He wants to sink the boat anyways. So Clemens checks on him. He goes and checks on the captain, who wanted to sink with the ship also. I don't understand why he's wasting all of his time. They should have just gotten into that boat and left. But no, Clemens checks on all of them. And eventually the captain like gets up on the wheel, and that is where Dracula kills him. He gets killed. He like lashes himself to the wheel to make sure that he can keep the Demeter going straight. But Dracula gets to him, kills him, and he kind of like dies on the wheel, which I guess is probably a fitting end for a captain. And after this, Dracula decides to fight Clemens. And Clemens tries to put up a good fight, but Dracula's much bigger. Dracula's supernatural. He just kind of swats him away. Clemens goes flying. Dracula's about to go take him out, but that is when Anna, who is kind of a badass in this movie, she shoots him with this gun. Like she was supposed to be the decoy, but she ends up being kind of like the savior. She shoots Dracula with a gun, and then Clemens hits him with an axe. Then after this, Anna cuts like one rope, and this boat is very rickety apparently, because that one rope causes the entire mast to like collapse and pin Dracula to the mast. This I guess then gives them the window for Clemens and Anna to escape. They jump off the ship, find some driftwood, and they drift away. Dracula is pinned to the mast, and the Demeter is just kind of like coasting. It was supposed to go out to sea. It was supposed to get sunk, but nope. It goes towards the coast. It crashes into the coast, and that crash like loosens up the mast enough so that Dracula can escape. So nice plan, but didn't go according to plan. They probably should have done it during the day. They probably should have done it far out at sea so Dracula couldn't escape. But I guess if they did that, there wouldn't be much of Bram Stoker's Dracula left to tell. So Clemens and Anna are floating in driftwood, and Clemens wakes up and sees Anna, but she is now starting to turn. Her eyes are milky. She's very, very pale. It seems like Dracula's like poison, Dracula's blood is starting to affect her, which is weird because it was affecting her earlier. Clemens gave her a bunch of blood transfusions, which I guess stemmed off the sickness or the Dracula vampireness. But it's been a while. Anna's been pretty good, so it seems like it's coming back. Now, he's like, oh, let me give you some more blood. And she's like, no, like, that just delays the inevitable. Like, we all knew this was happening. You just delayed it. And so she decides that she wants to, like, choose how she's going to go. She was offered a sacrifice to Dracula. Dracula, like, kept her as a captive for a long time. And now she's like, I'm going to choose how I go. So she climbs up onto this piece of driftwood and looks towards the sun as it comes up. And she bursts into flames. So of the entire crew, the only person left is Clemens. Now, he eventually makes it to England, and we do see a scene of what happens after he made it to England. Now, we're in London. The newspapers are all talking about this ghost ship that crashed, and then we see Clemens in a bar trying to track down where Carfax Abbey is. That is where the dirt that was being shipped was eventually supposed to be delivered. So he is trying to track down where this is because he figures where Carfax Abbey is, Dracula is, and he's going to go get his revenge. He finds someone who knows where it is. It's a couple hours out. They said they're going to leave in the morning. He's like, great, yeah, we should wait till morning also. And while he's in this bar, he hears some tapping, kind of like what happened on the ship. And he looks up and he sees this like well-dressed person, but still has like a rat face. Like, it's very weird because it definitely looks like a rat creature or a bat creature, but it is well-dressed. It looks like a gentleman. Clearly it's Dracula. And he sees it for a second and then it disappears. Clemens heads out the door, sees Dracula at the end of the alley, starts walking towards it. It sounds like Dracula is like taunting him, drawing him out. I don't really think this is the smartest move for Clemens. The last time they fought, he didn't do very well. I don't think he's going to last very long in a London alley against Dracula, but we don't know because as he's following Dracula, as he kind of talks about how he's going to get his revenge, the movie ends. That is the last voyage of the Demeter. Like I said, I liked it more than I expected to, but some of the things in the end just didn't really make much sense. Like, why didn't Anna tell them more about this creature? She said she didn't know much, but I'm sure she heard rumors. I'm sure she heard some information. She probably should have mentioned more about what this creature was earlier on. Why didn't they attack Dracula during the day? Why did they wait for night? Because it seems like it would have been much quicker and more and less dangerous to attack it during the day. Why didn't they just sink the Demeter? I guess they all wanted to survive, but they knew they were all going to die anyways, so they should have just sunk the Demeter out at sea and just kind of like got rid of it. But again, if all that stuff happened, you wouldn't have had the conclusion that you needed to then go into Bram Stoker's Dracula. So with that being said, with that conclusion, that is The Last Voyage of Demeter. It comes to theaters on August 11, 2023. Let me know if you check it out. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you liked, didn't like, and what I got right and wrong. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.